Right, here we go.
This is WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We're Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. The viewpoints expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. The following program contains subject matter, realistic language that some listeners may find objectionable. Listener discretion is advised. And hello, Savannah. We are here in the studio once again. Myself, Torvin Prestel, my excellent co-host, Carrie Smith, and my awesome friend, James. Say hello.
James.
Howdy. Hey.
We got
Glad
so much
to be back on.
Always good to have you guys. Always good to be with you guys here to have a conversation with the people of Savannah. So we have so much to talk about. Let's get right into it.
Today we're talking about national news. What is in the news? At the top of the news is
Trump and North Korea. Now, of course, everybody knows we do like to keep it local. I mean, we don't like talking about national news, but this is pretty much...
This is one of those weeks.
We can't go without saying anything on this one. So let's start with North Korea and Trump.
We're going to start with the, what is it called by CNN?
Fire and Fury.
Fire and Fury. Let's go ahead and play that statement.
They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening, beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly, power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
Okay, that is a clip from CNN, courtesy of CNN. Thank you, CNN.
Now this was there needed to be something said. Let's be fair here to Mr. Trump. Mm-hmm. There needed to be something. President Trump. There needed to be something said. But I don't think this should have been said necessarily. And what happened was he said, "I dare you to step over this line." And they said, "Not only are we stepping over the line, but we're going to build a McDonald's on the other side, and we're going to call it our house." So I mean, so James, what do you think about what do you think about North Korea's response to his fire and fury statement?
I believe President Trump, very respectfully, his statement just wasn't. It added fire and it added fury, and accordingly, North Korea responded not so nice. I mean, they didn't respond in a very diplomatic way because we didn't issue out a very diplomatic statement. So I think when you're dealing with crazy people, and this might not be the best term to use, but when you're dealing with folks that are not all the way sane, speaking of the folks in North Korea, Kim Jong-un specifically, then you don't want to add fire to a situation that you can simply dish out something very respectful, very diplomatic. I don't believe that President Trump needs to say everything that comes to his mind, and hopefully this statement doesn't end badly for our country or for North Korea. We don't want any lives, any blood to be shed, any lives to be lost over something just that that could have been handled a little bit better. And we've had presidents in the past that have handled situations a lot better. Of course, the government, our government, United States has gone to war. But I think in a lot of situations, you have to look to your Secretary of State to be a little bit more gentler, be more diplomatic in situations like this.
This comes into question. What does this statement do? We're talking about the tone of voice, the direction. And when we're talking about the tone of voice and direction as President Trump, the leader of the free world, the leader of the UN Security Council, the leader of, the current director, the current president of the armed forces, and what that means when it comes to a missile crisis.
His words are heavy around the planet, and
they're so heavy that it puts us into a new climate.
Well, it's certainly,
and the term that's being used is hyper. We are hyper being catapulted into a new phase, a new military direction right before our eyes.
Well, I have to agree with you, but let's step back just a second. We did have a terrible response from North Korea. Everybody saw that coming a mile away, and what they did was they said that they were going to launch 4 missiles close to Guam and have them land in the water, and they gave very specific coordinates for those. And there's a reason behind that. See, the North Korean people aren't stupid people. They're very smart. It takes very smart people to create a nuclear weapon from scratch. It's easy to do it when somebody gives you the blueprints, but to do it from scratch is extremely difficult. These are smart people, and they're going to land them. The coordinates that they gave are right outside of the U.S. protected waters. So you have Guam, you have the U.S. protected waters that go about 19 miles out from that, up close to 20, and they want to land the missiles 4 miles outside of that. Now, this in effect is a missile test for North Korea that they've been itching to do, and they just needed a leader from America to push them far enough to do it. Now, I will say that, we have been trying to deal with this for a long time, and they have been trying to develop these for a long time just to get to this point. But what they did need was someone on our side, the president, to not be diplomatic and say, well, we're not going to take it anymore. That's all really that needs to be said. And we haven't, since it started after World War II, we have never had a good decision and a bad decision. We just had, 4 or 5 bad decisions. We got to kind of pick which one's worse.
But what decisions are those? Are they diplomatic? Are they political?
They're all bad. It doesn't matter because they're all bad. If you have the diplomatic decisions that lead you to a crazy person having an arsenal of nuclear weapons back right after World War II, when the nuclear bomb is just dropped for the first time on Hiroshima, that's a much different political climate, and you're not trying to hand these guys any nuclear weapons. And from that point on, that was the mindset. And now they're like, well, look, all you do is destroy these third world countries. We won't be destroyed. They look at places like Libya, where Muammar Gaddafi gave up his nuclear weapons program, and Gaddafi ended up dead. So he does want to live, but he doesn't want to set off a nuclear strike against California because he knows that will be the end. We have a bunch of bad decisions. What are we
going to do to keep the peace? That is the big question here. That this is a loaded statement. His fire and fury statement, as he coined it himself, as it is being portrayed in the media. What does that mean in future diplomatic relations? And does this mean war? Is this type of rhetoric, is it just rhetoric, or is this a call to war? Is this a call to a new Cold War, a new alignment that has not been present since the early 80s, at the demise of the Cold War? Is this a new alignment that we haven't seen in over 2 decades?
Over 3.
And 3 decades.
And the answer is yes.
Because we've been, since 2011, 2001 and 2011, we have been on this north-south axis point. Does this mean that we're going to go back to those old relationships, those old alignments? Because, this is a loaded statement, yes, as we're concerned in America. How does that place us as we're no more just the superpower? Are we going to be leading into a new Cold War? And is it going to be a Cold War? Is it going to be a soft war? Or are we going to see another resurgence for a real war that would mean a real missile crisis where because of rhetoric, we are now being seen. We're seeing their military. We're seeing the Korean military bomb our people because of a president postulating against Kim Jong-un.
I do believe that there is no way to get out of this crisis without massive loss of life. I am
What is the
very
diplomatic answer?
pessimistic.
You're very pessimistic.
Very pessimistic on North Korea. With the current leadership and the current rhetoric coming out of Pyongyang itself. You have the Secretary of Defense, General Mattis, making statements about how they need to cease the destruction of their own, change their actions, or their people will be destroyed. That to me is very apocalyptic, and it's not surprising to me that Trump wants to go to war. Just like it wasn't surprising to me that Bush wanted to go to war. At least he is going to war with a country that there can be a good argument made for. We need to go to war with these people. We need to go in with overwhelming force. The reality is, since World War II, we have not been able to handle it effectively with diplomatic solutions. So there is an argument to be made for enough is enough. These guys are shooting off missiles. See, in Iran, they'll drop a chemical weapon on a few hundred of their people, and we want to send in a few thousand soldiers. But North Korea's been shooting off nuclear missiles, and we look the other way like, did somebody just make some coffee? Can I get a cup of coffee? Let's not really talk about that missile that they just shot off and tested for the 5th time. So there's a different playing field. So why just to be devil's advocate, not to say that I want to go to war at all. Let me be perfectly clear about that. But isn't there something to be said for the people who are saying enough is enough? 30, 40 years dealing with this, because we say 30, but maybe really even longer. We've been dealing with it.
Longer than that.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that in a second.
So at this point, I am conflicted.
So what is the answer, James? The diplomatic. What is our diplomatic response?
Is there
one
response?
You know what? What I've learned is that sometimes you don't have to act. I think diplomatically, folks need to, in our current administration, need to sit back and learn, about the government, reach out to people that are a little bit more informed on the relations with North Korea and how our response may impact our relations with other countries in the world. I think that's important. And so, therefore, I don't have an answer specifically as to what that response would be, but I do think that I would recommend that they be a little bit more thoughtful and considerate in responding. You cannot just say whatever is, on the top of your head. I was reading the Washington Post, I believe, this morning, and there was, trying to remember, it was stated that, or it was written that his advisors didn't know, or President Trump's advisors did not know that he was going to use the fire and fury statement.
That is exactly right.
They were not aware of that. So that was just a surprise, as always, but it doesn't leave us in a very good...
Does that leave us in a volatile state?
Yeah, very good. Right, exactly.
But so, again, I do have to play devil's advocate again. I hate doing this, especially for Trump, but...
We know how you feel about Trump.
You have to, the reason he made that statement was because of them making threats. Now, they've been making threats, and they want to see it at the international table, and they want one-on-one talks with America. Since the Korean War.
They did this to every day for the past 3-4 decades since the Korean War. And it's more than that, but...
So, I do believe, if anything can be called a good decision out of the bad decisions, that there could be one where you say, okay, North Korea, look, let's sit down, have a beer. we don't want to die. You don't want to die. Let's get everything together. What we want to do, we want to you know what? You made the nuclear bombs. You figured out how to do it. All right. You're with the big boys. Come to get away from the little kids table. Come to the big guys table. But you have to play by the rules. Now that is where it gets tricky.
That is where it gets tricky, because Russia has been spending a lot of money investing in this thing in Korea.
Well, Russia,
they've been aligning themselves to be a new power player.
They're a power player.
They are a power player.
They're a power player.
They're trying,
but they're not aligned with North Korea.
They're not completely, but it can be implied from their investments in Korea. But here's
well, they have investments in America, right, in the White House.
Well, yes, but let's be honest here. Russia has been trying to get recognition for their power for a long time, and America will not relinquish. That they will not say that you are on the same level as the United States. You have not earned that right yet. They are trying so hard to get on the same level, to get that recognition. Well, and they haven't gotten it yet.
In my opinion, in some ways, America is lagging behind Russia. Mm-hmm. And space travel, and if you want to go to space, you know where you got to go? Russia. Even American astronauts. So and it is terribly expensive, and it makes them filthy rich to send stuff to space from Russia. We scrapped our program. Now we're building a new one supposedly, but that's going to be years.
But so I guess the question is,
the only way they lag is economics.
What is the new power structure? Who is at the top? Who versus who? Is this the East-West conflict?
The most powerful?
Is this a North-South conflict? Or do we see a new alignment coming that we have not seen, a new resurgence of the Cold War? That it's no longer the Soviet Union and the United States leading the East and West powers? Or is it now Russia versus the United States? Russia and Korea versus the United States?
This is the $50 trillion World War III question. It's musical chairs, and there are not enough seats for everybody to sit down, number one. Number two, they're on opposite sides of the room. So there are some power players. America, clearly. Russia and China. Europe pretty much is a power player together. But Europe does follow the lead of America for the most part. But China, I do believe, is the most powerful in all of them. They deal directly with North Korea on a friendly level, and they deal directly with America on a friendly level. They have the most to gain and the most to lose out of this. North Korea is strategically placed very close to China, right next to China and Russia. So neither one of those two countries want a nuclear war on their border. South Korea doesn't want a nuclear war to the north of them, so we can't just drop nuclear bombs on North Korea. So the most powerful country would be us if we could just go and drop nuclear bombs on them like we did with Japan, but we can't do that, so that becomes China. And China can say, you know what?
There's a big reason why we can't do that, but go ahead.
China can say whatever they want. They can pick whoever side they want. China is the kingmaker, or just the king with a bunch of subjects.
What you're alluding to is that America has a real strong relationship with North Korea.
We have 6 degrees of separation, close relationship with North Korea. Yes, we do. Well, but like with any country on the planet, like with any country, we as much as we don't want to admit it, we get natural resources from North Korea, and they go straight from the North Korean mines and factories to China to America. And the things in iPhones and your Galaxies and your laptops and pretty much all new technology, your flat screen, most of that stuff has raw materials, natural resources from North Korea and or China.
But is history repeating itself is the question. And it's history repeating itself because we have considered this relationship before. And we've had issues with these power structures before, going all the way back to possible threats post-World War II. And what we're talking about is Harry Truman signing we're talking about Harry Truman signing the NATO treaty, which involved the U.S., Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Great Britain, Iceland, Italy, and Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, and the United States, and signing a treaty in January of 1949 to ensure that and as Robert A. Taft, who was a senator at the time, says, according to the History Channel, I just want to make sure we're on our point here, it says that this is not a peace program. He referred to it as a war program to stop possible threats of communism provoked by Soviet Union. And he stated that we would need to look at Greece, Turkey, and West Germany who would join in this cause. So this comes out of a conflict. We wanted to play just a little bit of how we got involved with this. What is the explanation? So let's play a little video that we found from the educational video group on YouTube.
A third world war. The communists in the Kremlin are engaged in a monstrous conspiracy to stamp out freedom all over the world. If they were to succeed, the United States would be numbered among their principal victims. It must be clear to everyone that the United States cannot and will not sit idly by and await foreign conquest. The only question is, when is the best time to meet the threat, and how is the best time to meet it? The best time to meet the threat is in the beginning. It is easier to put out a fire in the beginning when it is small than after it has become a roaring blaze. And the best way to meet the threat of aggression is for the peace-loving nations to act together. If they don't act together, they are likely to be picked off one by one. Their aggression against Korea is the boldest and most dangerous move the communists have yet made. The attack on Korea was a part of a greater plan for conquering all Asia. I would like to read to you from a secret intelligence report which came to us after the attack. The report tells what a communist officer in the Far East told his men several months before the invasion of Korea. Here's what he said. In order to successfully undertake the long-awaited world revolution, we must first unify Asia, Java, Indochina, Malaya, India, Tibet, Thailand, Philippines, and Japan are our ultimate targets.
So what we're seeing here is that these targets aren't new. That even though we may not call them communist, that we may have a different name for this new power structure that's really emerging. I think that we're putting a name to the science of this new political structure. And it's a resurgence of the old Cold War. So let's call it the Neo-Cold War.
The Neo-Cold War.
Yeah, I like it. Let's start on the Verb Altitude Hour.
Well, the North Korean regime is an authoritarian regime. Mm-hmm. And it is very reminiscent of the Cold War. I think it's way worse. Mm-hmm. But Neo-Cold War is interesting. Mm-hmm. I really wish that we could come to some kind of, even if it's very uncomfortable, democratic solution. But I really just do not think so.
Well, let's get into this a little bit more when we come back from break. This is the Verb Altitude Hour on WRUU.LP Savannah, Georgia 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
This portion of WRUU-LP Savannah Soundings programming is made possible by a grant from Sentient Bean, offering fair trade coffee, vegan and vegetarian food, and breakfast all day. Located at 13 East Park Avenue, across the street from the tennis courts at Forsyth Park. Our menu and special events listings can be found at sentientbean.com.
If you enjoy our programming on WRUU-LP, please support the station with a donation. As an individual, you can give any amount, become a basic station member, or become a serious fan of the station. To check out membership rates and to donate to the station, go to www.wruu.org/individual and select to donate monthly or subscribe to an annual membership. Again, to donate to the station, go to www.wruu.org/individual and select to donate monthly or subscribe to an annual membership. Thank you for listening to and supporting WRUU-LP.
Welcome back to WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And this is Carrie Smith on the Verb Altitude Hour. We've also got our team here of co-hosts, James Muhammad Mason calling in from Chicago, Illinois, and our friend Torvin.
Hello. So let's talk a little bit more about today's events. About 5 minutes before we started doing this here today, there was some a press conference coming from our president, Mr. Trump, and the reporters were asking him about his statements on fire and fury, and like the world has never seen, and
The world
asking
has never seen.
It sounds like a movie, doesn't it?
Sounds very scripted. I know that if he's not scripted, he must have rehearsed that in his brain before he said it.
He can only script sound bites though. Then everything else is just off the cuff.
The world has ever seen.
So today, he says when they ask him about it, well, it was not firm enough, was not harsh enough. He needed to be more direct with North Korea, more harsh with them. And he's saying this after they already threatened to launch the missiles on. They didn't say they were going to do it. They said they were going to launch the missiles at Guam. They didn't say they were going to.
Well, they're always making idle threats.
Well, sometimes
They're
they're
just
idle
getting
and
closer to not being so idle.
sometimes they're not. Now that they have miniaturized a nuclear weapon to put inside of a missile, ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, and our THAAD missile defense system has to be set up exactly where they're going to be shooting at for it to be effective. These guys are deadly serious and very dangerous, and he's playing a game of cat and mouse, and I quite frankly think it's very dangerous for.
Do you remember that 1980s movie about the war games? I feel like this is almost like you got three old guys sitting back who've had cigars, Kim Jong-un, Donald Trump, and the Russian dude.
Putin, also the leader of China.
Right. They sit back and they say, let's see what we can do. Bring back this new Cold War.
I mean, this is more of a nuclear war.
Well, I know.
And it's really frightening me. I can't really wrap my brain around why the president would go on TV to do his first press conference in forever. Haven't been doing press conferences like other presidents have.
Even though he went on Twitter today to say, General Maddox, can you do something here?
It's just, I mean, we have now a situation where in the press conference he was saying that he was ready to do more. He was ready to actually act. They asked him about preemptive strikes, and he was like, well, you'll see what we're going to do. He didn't say that we weren't going to do anything. He didn't say we were going to talk. He said, you'll see what we're going to do. You have to wait and see. So if you're going, like, what now, I would love for them to send special forces in there, a bunch of SEAL Team 6 guys or whatever, and take the guy out. But the problem with that is he has a bunch of body doubles, just like Saddam Hussein had, and we can't tell them apart. I mean, I can't. I don't hang out with enough Asian people. I love Asian people, but I don't hang out with enough of them to determine, and most people aren't. If you're not going to be hanging around people of a certain color, you tend to think that racial group looks similar. Now you can, of course, start to determine differences the more you are looking at that particular race of people, but that's where that saying comes from: all black people look alike, all white people look alike. If you're not around those people, then they all do look alike to you. So it's going to be hard to try to go in there and take him out singularly and then replace him with another person to run that country, or just to make it one Korea and South Korea becomes just Korea or something awesome like that. I would really, but the nuclear subs that they have is a problem. How do you stop nuclear submarines? You can barely find a submarine. How do you stop that from, they can have that sitting up the coast of New York as their ace in the hole, for example. So,
James.
And and we have technology, to your point, but we have technology that would identify him. So we wouldn't be just solely, looking, having folks go out there and say, "Oh, does that look like him? Okay, take him out."
Very true.
Would have,
very true.
Some sort of technology that would, prior to, identify his location and then take him out. But I think again, I didn't say this before, but this is not a normal presidency. So things that happened in the past, or strategies that were
more diplomatic in nature.
Yeah, no, the things that President Obama did, or even President Bush, this president is just not going to do. So I don't know.
We can't predict.
It's only been 6 months, so I really don't understand his foreign policy, how he actually operates. Outside of just understanding that it's just not normal, or that it's just a little bit different than past presidencies. So when he responds to how he may handle things, or when he has these fits, and he says that he's going to respond with fire and fury. This just shows that there is just a level of immaturity from this president that that is really honestly scary, and it places us in a really extremely bad position because we don't know how he's going to respond. That might be a good thing in terms of potential war, or just in terms of strategy. That might be a good thing. However, what we've seen is not so great, because he's all over the place. When you look at healthcare and other topics, all over the place, immigration, all over the place. It's not anything that's just, he's not very focused. And this is why this kind of scares me, because I can't just take what he says and run away with it and says, okay, well, this is what the president said, so this is what we're going to go with, because we know at 3 o'clock in the morning, he's going to tweet out something different. So today he might say, you know what, and he did not say this, but he may say, you know what, I don't want to go to war with them. However, at 3 o'clock in the morning, we're going to war. So we have to, this is just a very different time for the United States, and it's very sad, but it's very different.
I really wish we could limit the powers of the president for this one time right now as far as mobilizing troops, because you have to have Congress to officially declare war. But everybody knows if the president launches a massive strike on North Korea, Congress is going to have no choice. And he has almost unlimited funds to do whatever he wants as far as launching missiles, putting troops over there on the ground. I really do hope that we can resolve this. if it's not diplomatic, oh well, in my opinion. I just don't want nuclear bombs going off. That's really my only thing. So if they can send in some special forces people, I think that's the best option we got. Send in a bunch of just super soldiers and super awesome new age equipment, EMP them or something, take out all their electronics, making sure they can't do anything. I don't know, do something. There are much smarter people than me, way above my pay grade, that know way more about top secret stuff. Do some of y'all's top secret stuff and take this guy out.
You know, Jim Maracus posted this morning a post on his Facebook news feed, which I thought was really good. It reads that he is the son of a Korean War veteran, and he said, "I'm disturbed by some of the revisionist history and misinformation I'm seeing about the conflict in mainstream and social media." He says that the Korean War was not a loss for the U.S. and the United States. He goes on, but what he says, it makes a really good point here, says that you can argue particulars all you want, but the fact remains that the U.S. and the UN were strategically victorious in responding to an extremely aggressive, expansionist threat. Many Americans seem to think the Korean War and the Vietnam War are basically interchangeable. These are two completely different conflicts with two completely different contexts and histories. And he is so true with that statement. Oh, and for those that may not know, Jim Maracus is the director for the local Savannah Connect magazine.
A lot of people do confuse the two, and a lot of people do not have any clue about the Korean War or what it means or anything, or anything about it. A lot of people do know about Vietnam. It's been made very sexy by Hollywood to make a movie about Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. People dying and being blown up. And
there were a lot more protests for Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And what have you. The Korean War was a much different, a huge waste of money. A huge waste of money. We've been wasting money there.
But it was one that we needed to partake in to save South Korea.
Yes.
Which has become one of our foremost allies.
A great ally, and we are very fortunate that they are such a good ally in that part of the world. Mm-hmm. Very fortunate. The hope and dream is that North Korea will melt into South Korea one day, and when they'll sing "Kumbaya," I really hope that happens. If anybody's listening, which they're not, to me, take in some bad, just super awesome snipers, like they took out the. I feel like if you take the head off the snake is gonna die. As big as the snake is. They had a protest today in North Korea. Mm-hmm. The protest doesn't look like the protests here in America. Everybody stands in formation. Everyone's in line. And they chant together. They pump their fists literally in unison. It's very spectacular, actually. All in front of the dear leader. And they are protesting America's actions. But they go to the protest because they are required to. You can't miss a protest because you die for missing protests.
Right.
So I feel like in that kind of instance where those people who have to show up to that protest are starving when they have to go back home, if you take the head off the snake, then we can really have control of that country. People have freedom. We're not, as long as we're not an occupying force, as long as we don't make the same mistakes that we made in Iraq, and it's a much different situation. You have South Korea there.
I don't know if the two are as comparable.
Much different. Yeah. Much different. But
as a political scientist, I always draw the line. I hate comparing different conflicts because I feel like there's so many different scenarios, and
certainly.
Because, it also weighs in on not just the security interest, but also what this would mean to possible economic changes as well. Because, these type of conflicts are just singular to being a military conflict or security conflict. It also has to do with how our enterprises work together. And America really, we do have a relationship with South Korea. And what is North Korea trying to do to postulate against South Korea? And how do we continue to defend our partner and our ally there. So there's a lot of different things that we're looking at here that draws a lot of different conclusions, I think.
I think the main thing is immediate bloodshed when North Korea says, okay, Trump, enough's enough. We've had it. Now we're going to do something. It's not so easy to just there's no way to abruptly end a conflict there. And that's what we need if we're going to be in a nuclear war. The vast majority of the country is under threat of an intercontinental ballistic missile. When you look at the map, most of the country is in red. Now we're not, but the winds carry nuclear material straight to us. So James, you are in the red, sir. So for you, plenty of my family members, friends, and just people I don't know who are red-blooded Americans, we need to take the most effective route to stop this regime. If they're going to stop for a box of Twinkies, fine. If they are going to stop for our SEAL Team 6, then that's what it's going to take.
So my question to you all is this: it's more of a rhetorical statement as well. To handle it the way that we are now is going to hypersensitize and hyperdrive us into a conflict with this type of rhetoric. That all the boys have been waiting for a conflict, and the men and women, yeah, let's go. We're ready to charge. But we're not ready. And what do we have to do besides sitting down, coming back to the table, signing another NATO document saying, hey, this has happened before? Who are we going to align with? And how do we keep the security issue at bay? Trying to keep as you said earlier, the musical chairs from aligning to one day that one missile goes off and it blows up all the chairs all at one time. How do we come to the table and say, with the president that we currently have, how does the legislature put a stop to this when we have the commander-in-chief postulating a possible war, which is not just a normal war that we've seen in the past, as you allude. This is not the same type of Cold War. This is a new animal.
A nuclear war.
A nuclear war. This means that the planet, there's countries and cities that can blow up in a matter of seconds. What is the diplomatic answer that I pose to you and James?
I think the best diplomatic answer, if you really want to get to the root of it, is for the United States to say, to give in. To give in to the demands of North Korea, which are very simple. Really alleviate the sanctions and have two-party talks, America and North Korea, and they want to go from there. Now they don't want to die, just like us.
Right.
But they're like, look, we're gonna die, or we're gonna die anyway because of you guys. Is what they preach over there. We're coming to invade, is what they're preaching. And when we put boots on the ground over there, they're gonna be preaching even harder. I feel like that's the only way that we can get at least get in the same room with the guy and get into an uncomfortable relationship.
Well,
we had to do the same thing with Pakistan.
Right.
And Pakistan became a nuclear power. They're our ally, but that's where Osama bin Laden was hiding for years and years and years.
I don't think we're ready for this type of conflict. James, what do you think?
No, we're not ready for this type of conflict. However, I think what we have to do, we have to just stay focused. We need true leadership. President Trump needs to just focus on running the United States. And our elected officials, our folks that we've sent, to the House to represent us, they need to do their job. Of course, yes, this is huge, but this is, in my opinion, it's a distraction from so many other things that everyday Americans are dealing with. And I think we have to just stay focused on that, because this is very timely when we're dealing with so many other things in our country. And now everyone's attention is focusing on these threats. And yes, they may be real. Yes, they may be real. However, with any organization, with any country, you can't show your cards. You can't talk about what you're going to do. You can't have idle threats, or you can't throw all that stuff out there. You just need to continue to stay focused and lead. And under this administration, that's one thing that's lacking. Just stay focused. Stay focused on the issues. The Americans here, we have so many things, so many homeless people, so many people that are underemployed. Stay focused on those issues, while in the background, or at the same time, you still have folks focusing on our foreign issues that we might be having with North Korea or any other country.
Well, that's a good point, because our resources are not the same. If we look at history repeating itself again, we were doing some brushing up on our research about the original Korean War, and I call it the first Korean War. And hopefully there will not be another Korean conflict that involves the U.S. defending South Korea against North Korea. But our military budget right after World War II dropped. Just like, going into the Korean War, just like our current budget is also dropped, that we just don't have the financial resources or the manpower to go into a ground conflict. We just don't have it.
I think sometimes now Iraq has soured a lot of us on conflict, but sometimes we have to do uncomfortable things militarily to get things done. We have no choice, in my opinion, in this case. I think to give in to them is a terrible option. We should not do it, because then we're going to have to start giving in to all kind of terrorists who, once they get a nuclear weapon, they're going to be like, all I got to do is get some nukes. Let's go get some nukes. But we should not do that. We just this is not just escalating since Trump got elected, as we've been talking about. We have multiple incidents. Last year, North Korea sank a South Korean ship. Well, I think it was like 43 South Korean people died. They launched missiles during Obama's term, also into South Korea, right over the border, and there were stern words, but nothing really happened. Now, since Trump comes back with after the threat of shooting missiles at Guam, he says, "Well, we weren't strong enough. We're going to be a little tougher." Well, now are they going to? Now what's going to happen? Like every day, it's like turning on a soap opera. When I turn on CNN and Fox and MSNBC to see what's going on, it's like a new soap opera with some new drama between these two. Quite frankly, these two idiots who lead our two countries, North Korea and America. They're like two children in a playground.
Let's not forget a movie was made about this current dictator, this authoritarian leader, Kim Jong-un, who, we weren't able to play it because of how he thought he was portrayed. Remember that movie?
That was about his father.
Oh, sorry. Well,
that was about his father, and his father was very upset about that movie.
Yeah.
Actually, let's see. I can't remember the name of it, but
yeah.
I
know interview.
The little. Yeah.
Right.
The interview.
Oh, okay. So there are two movies.
Yeah.
They don't like us making fun of them. But
right.
Nobody likes you when you make fun of them, of course. It's a little different when you have a crazy person sitting on a whole bunch of nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. So, that just throwing that out there. I don't think we should stop how we make movies because they don't like them. Mm-hmm. But we should. I mean, a movie producer or Hollywood, and what Hollywood says is much different than what comes out of the Rose Garden. Mm-hmm. Much different. So those words are heavy words, and they stick for generations. You can't. So if that is what in 30 years we're going to look back and say, well, you know what? If he would have never went out and made that statement on August 10th, then this would have never happened.
2017.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But, we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. I would really like us to do some kind of preemptive action, going in there covertly, putting, some specialized forces on the ground, some specialized attacks to really take out the head of their government and change that country. I think that's the best thing to do. I really hope the generals, Trump surrounded himself with generals. The one thing I think is great, I'm a military kid, as you know. So hopefully he will take advice from them and they will go move forward in the best way possible to keep us safe in this country.
Okay. On that note, you have anything else to add before we do a short little third segment? James?
Nope, this is going good.
All right. Well, this is the Verb Altitude Hour on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Verb Altitude Hour. When we come back, we'll be talking a few 5 short minutes on this whole scandal that Google's got going on with one of its
Google engineers, I tell you, they can't
Silicon Valley.
Can't keep it to themselves.
All right.
What's wrong?
This has been the Verb Altitude Hour.
This portion of WRUU-LP Savannah Soundings programming is made possible by a grant from Sentient Bean, offering fair trade coffee, vegan and vegetarian food, and breakfast all day. Located at 13 East Park Avenue, across the street from the tennis courts at Forsyth Park. Our menu and special events listings can be found at sentientbean.com.
If you enjoy our programming on WRUU-LP, please support the station with a donation. As an individual, you can give any amount, become a basic station member, or become a serious fan of the station. To check out membership rates and to donate to the station, go to www.wruu.org/individual and select to donate monthly or subscribe to an annual membership. Again, to donate to the station, go to www.wruu.org/individual and select to donate monthly or subscribe to an annual membership. Thank you for listening to and supporting WRUU-LP.
This is the Verb Altitude Hour on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. We are back with James and Torvin and myself, and we are talking about what's going on in Silicon Valley with this young man from Google who produced a 10-page document talking about other female associates in Google and their relationship with the current climate in the workplace.
This gentleman, I do believe, took things a little too far, and basically trying to say that men are superior. You probably should never do that at work, or anywhere. The place for that kind of conversation is in your head. If that's what you think, you should have the conversation with yourself. He is now doubling down on his comments.
We're talking about James Damore, who was a
Yes.
Google engineer, and he was talking about attitudes in the workplace.
Right. He is saying that he's not a sexist.
Right.
This is coming out of the Washington Post today, saying that his quote is, "I'm not saying that any of the female engineers at Google are in any way worse than the average male engineer." But that's exactly what he said, it seems like to me. So,
And I just love some of the comments that I heard from a female analyst who was on NPR yesterday talking about this as a seduction and what it means to the way that women are portrayed in the technology field in Silicon Valley. And we hear a lot of rhetoric coming out of these conversations, these discussions in the media. And one of the reasons that I had a dissenting opinion about her word choice is that as a woman, why would you want to sexualize even a conversation with characteristics that you're using, tailoring to this conflict, which brings up the conversation of how women are portrayed in the workplace. And what we're talking about is the number of women who are chosen over male counterparts because of affirmative action as they enter in a predominantly male field.
Well, I do believe that women are a lot of times kind of steered away from tech jobs and tech educations in general because of just this kind of thought and this line of thinking. But I think that we're all fairly equal. I mean, there are some guys who are smarter than other guys, some girls who are smarter than other girls, but we're all fairly equal. I think that we should not. This has no place in the workplace. No place in the workplace at all. If you haven't, we have differences. Men and women have differences clearly, but to say that because of discrimination, that's why the population of engineers and tech positions are filled with men for the most part, to the tune of, what did you say, 70%, which is true. Then that means that women are inferior. That's not the case. That's not the case at all.
James DeMora had an interview. This is the young man who produced the 10-page document with New York Magazine, and it discussed that this has been circulating for a few days, but it was from the upper executives of Google that when they went through the document being released and streamed on the internet, that it became an issue. Before this, it was hush-hush quiet. It was just sort of cultural talk in the workplace. But when this hit the media, the majority of us who don't know about the document is when it was finally let go. And I think that Google is going to have a town hall this afternoon to talk about, how that this language that the more vocalized is not expressed by the individual company itself. So I know that we need to wrap up here about telling this conversation again, but I think that how to end this conversation today for us here is to really consider, has the workplace changed? With younger folks of our generation coming out with the same thought? And if not, I do agree with some of the conversations that were on NPR from some of the commentators calling in, and some of the listeners calling in, talking about if this is how he feels, to challenge that thought and challenge that rhetoric, because there's a large majority of people, not I wouldn't say a large majority, but there's a small portion of the U.S. population that feels this way.
Well, women still make 77 cents for every dollar a man makes doing the same exact job.
Right. There's men that feel this way. Why do they feel this way? And have an open conversation rather than, demonize him as
well. Men and women are indoctrinated into that line of thinking. Mm-hmm. It's something that's something that you grow up with. You don't just think that. That's something you're kind of taught. So it has to be. It does start with the parents and the community, like a lot of other things.
You are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5, WRUU.org.